Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Friday, October 24th at 11:32 a.m. And I'd like to say for the first time in quite some time, I think it's starting to show the beginning of the end. And what does that mean? You can't see the end if you can't see the beginning. And we know for a long time, for all of what people have talked about as being the cycle, I've said nothing has happened yet. And I continue to say that. So don't confuse the clarification I'm about to offer with the fact that it still hasn't happened yet. Once you see the market start to have exuberance, you know the end is coming. And that's what I mean by the statement. We don't see exuberance. Clearly, there's a complete absence of exuberance. There's almost an absence of bullishness. It's mostly a horizontal accumulation. If anything, 2025 has been much like 2024, except longer in duration. So 2024, between March of 2024 and October, nothing. It was just horizontal in the price action. Well, guess what? December of 2024 to October of 2025 is literally horizontal in price action. So this is a very long duration of nothing occurring at all, absence of any exuberance. But the point is, we've started to see headlines of bank reserves finally starting to fall, which is a very meaningful indicator, and it has confluence with the Fed's public note about starting to see the end of QT. Now, QT is significant. QT is not what people think it is. And QE is not money printer go burr. It's a very gen pop narrative. QE is basically where the Fed is a market maker, and they're the biggest buyer in the room, and that signals to the market that there's always someone that's going to buy. So it changes market behavior, and that's what's significant. It's not that it's not money printer. That's just a silly take. It's important to understand the mechanics of why and how different agencies doing things have a particular effect, and how QE impacts currency supply. It's not how most people think. It has to do with the same exact story we've always told. It's the euro dollar market. And it has to do with interest rates, it has to do with interest rates coming down, it has to do with the volatility of those interest rates coming down. And that's what triggers currency creation. So when the Fed steps in with a QE type program, they're affecting interest rates. Being the largest actor in the room, they have a tendency to drive interest rates down. And that's a distortion of the market. They're coming in out from left field saying we're the government and we're going to manipulate prices. And that's exactly why it has the negative consequences that folks would think when the government steps into an economy. And that's why the global economy has gotten to where it is. Now, obviously, this has happened across the entire planet for every single country. We're at the point where everything's distorted. There is no economy on the planet that's not a manifestation of geopolitical collusion, where every country works together to massage, to maintain order, economic order. I mean, look at the United States stepping in on Argentina. If Argentina continues its decline, that is a marginal component of global economics, and marginal actors have a way of cascading into systemic events. Um, Now, that's not something that folks talk about. The political headlines are completely distorting or distortive of these economic considerations. They talk about the politics of it. Oh, Argentina's a place to go when people have to leave the country. No, it's a fucking marginal actor in global economics. And if you let an economy collapse, no matter how large it is, there's ripple effects. And obviously, you could say, oh, it's some tiny little African country and it's not going to blow up the entire global financial system. Okay, so maybe some financial analyst says um, it's worth the risk to let a country collapse, but it looks like some financial analyst said it's not worth the risk to let Argentina collapse. All right. So most of these political headlines are absolutely useless, manipulative, deceitful, um, just non informative as to really what's going on. To the point where it's like, what's the point of even listening to the headlines? What's the point of even listening to anyone talk? I have such a cynicism towards everything and anything that comes out of our government. I'm just at the point of no return, and that's everything. That's the whole goddamn system. I want nothing to do with the system, and that's how I manage my finances. I manage my finances like, leave me the fuck alone. I hate the system. I don't care right, left. I don't care the argument, and I have my bias. Everyone has their bias. I skew towards left or right or whatever. That's irrelevant. It's all a fucking crock of shit. Now, if you want to manage capital, you want to manage money and navigate the shit show of politics, you got to drop your biases. You better understand what's actually going on and not listen to people's words because words are useless, especially the words of politicians. You need to understand the mechanics of the system. You have to understand why politicians are saying what they're saying. You have to understand intent because intent is critical, especially when looking into like laws. What is the intent? This intent is critical, especially from a courtroom perspective. Intent is everything. So when you understand the way the system works and you understand why the politicians say what they do, you have a better understanding of why the economics are playing out the way they're playing out. And that leads us to where we are with regard to economics. Because no matter what a politician says, when bank reserves start to get too tight, the system is getting pinched for what's quote unquote called liquidity, which is basically a capacity for the system to transfer required currency units. What does that mean? It's what was September of 2019 when the United States banking system failed that nobody talks about? The repo crisis. That was when banks didn't want to lend to one another. So what happened was the interest rate, the repo rate, shot up to like 10%. Now, if Chase wanted to borrow from HSBC, it was like, all right, fine. I don't want to do it. I don't want to lend you any money. I don't trust you for shit, but I will if you give me 10% of the money. And these are overnight interest rates, just borrowing money overnight. They don't trust each other. Damn, they don't trust each other for, oh, dude, let me borrow $10 so I could get some money overnight. Like, no, dude, I don't trust you. That's what they were saying. That's crazy. That's a pretty shitty situation for a global economic financial system to be in. But that's what occurred in September of 2019. And that's not where we are right now. But the point, especially with standing facilities. So the Fed has a standing repo operation, a standing reverse repo operation, which means after September 2019 and getting us towards today, the Federal Reserve basically has a permanent office of the repo and the reverse repo. As I'm a bank and hey Fed, that bank's now lending to me. All right, come in. We'll take care of you. That's exactly what the Fed did. They have an office, and you could knock on the door, call them, fax them, because I'm sure they still love fax machines, and ask them for a repo or a reverse repo. And that's where we look for some data nowadays to see the intervention in the system if there's a repo, someone using the repo market. And clearly, we're seeing the reverse repo market completely collapse. That means many things. It tells us the state of economics. Now, with reserves where they are, liquidity is getting tight and QT is probably going to stop. And guess what? We see in the headlines that's exactly what they're saying. So we're starting to see signs of the cycle getting to where we want it to be, where the Federal Reserve is going to start considering buying assets which affects interest rates. They need to bring down long-term interest rates and which will boost collateral pricing. And when you do that, you increase the capacity for the United States to borrow because you're decreasing their debt servicing costs and you're increasing collateral value for however leveraged in treasury instruments, and that increases borrowing capacity. That's your collateral. That's the global collateral. That's your Ave health factor going up and to the right. Okay? So all the stars are there. There has been no cycle yet. Nothing has occurred yet. All we have is basically a return to the mean, a return to the average, a return to 2021 highs. Now, you don't see that in the Bitcoin chart because of the treasuries, the Bitcoin treasuries that skewed everything, but you certainly see that in total three. So three, zoom out, and we are literally at 2021 highs. And I don't give a crap. You're up at a trillion one, fine. It's 10% off 2021 highs. But the point is that's where we are. And that's exactly what I want to see to understand where we are in the cycle. So what does the beginning of the end mean when this thing finally breaks out and you get a giant, frankly, a giant measured move? Because this is not the worst from a cup and handle standpoint. If you take from the bottom to the top and you take about half, and that's your handle, fine. This is probably the handle, and this is probably just the leg right here, something like this. Boop, I guess maybe. And if you do the bottom to the top as a measured move, you're talking about a massive increase in capitalization of these markets, like 2, 3 trillion, and a blow off top to 4, 5 trillion. That's where the degeneracy really kicks in, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, we're all going to be rich, and we're never going to have to work again." And then, oh, rug pull, everyone takes all of their money. So the beginning of the end is the start of exuberance. Once you see the exuberance, you're like, fine, all right. You go 10x, 50x above where everyone thought it was going to go, and everyone starts to talk. It's never coming back down. There's the beginning of the end, and that's what we see from like a cyclicality with gold. That is a heck of that's exactly what we'll see in crypto data too. When people are starting to line up in the streets outside of stores to buy gold at $4,400 an ounce. And maybe this continues. Maybe this isn't just a local interaction because that's thus far one heck of a wick. It's not a bearish engulfing on the weekly, certainly a bearish engulfing on the daily. In fact, it broke the 10 SMA to the downside on the daily. No, it's constructive. Not It's not overwhelmingly constructive of a reversal, but this is the type of conversation we'll start to have when we're looking for top in crypto markets. Like, oh, when is this exuberance going to end? Because there's clearly exuberance in the gold market of the kind that we're used to seeing in crypto markets. So folks can look to this chart of late for especially folks that are new to these crypto markets to get a sense of what the hell euphoria looks like in crypto markets. Now it looks amplified, much more so amplified in crypto markets, 10x, 50x, 100x the amount of volatility to the upside. But these are just monumental, mind blowing, unexpected, unheard of numbers for the gold price. The people lining up in the streets. So you can only imagine the narratives when crypto really starts rolling. It's oh the whole industry is going to change and this industry is going to go away. It's going to completely the banks are going to go. You can imagine people are going to be really calling for like banks to be disintermediated and bypass. Like I'm using Aave as my bank now. That might be a very popular thing. Certainly something that I say is popular right now to the point where I would argue if I'm going to use a banking product, I prefer to use Aave, but that might become very popular, especially as the exuberance really builds. And then everyone gets rugged because they're 100x or 500x off the floor, and it's just too high, too fast. You fly too close to the sun, you get burned, and then it comes crashing down. Then a 500x crashes horribly. The horror when a 500x in your portfolio is up 50x. Oh, you pull a 25x on the portfolio at bear market bottom. Oh, the horror. Horror. And that comes back to like conversations we have about expectations. And those are quite reasonable expectations. Oh, the portfolio is up 500x. And, it's we're talking about the purchase component and the purchase component. Oh, it crashed all the way down and you're only up 25x on the money, 50x on the money. A 90% retrace from 500x. And that's pretty, to me, that would be a dream. I would be, seeing the portfolio up 500x and it crashes 90% and I'm only up 50x on the money. Oh my God. Oh dear. That would certainly be a dream. Um, so, that's the Bitcoin perspective. Ethereum is basically the same. It tells us more so information aligned with total three that we're starting to see the potential beginning of things. And really the macro is what tells us that as a forward looking indicator what kicks off things like total three, Ethereum, and Bitcoin leading the pack. Curve hovering at 52, just horizontal. Move down to 74. That's nice to see. You don't get no bull market with move up at 80. You don't get a bull market with move at 74. You get a bull market with move moving from 70 to 60 to 50 to 40. And there is where things get weird. You don't get a bull market with maybe DXY in the 90s. Maybe. I want to see it break that trend line. Nice move down to 90. Now you're talking. That'd be interesting. That'd be constructive. Bull market where the DXY is heading down towards 88 to 90. And guess what? You know why? Wouldn't that be weird? That would completely coincide with exactly what happened in the 2020 and 2021 cycle, as well as the 16 and 17 cycle. I mean, seriously, look, this is 2020 to 2021. And you guys know we've talked about this. This is your crypto bull market. This is the bull markets that everyone historically talks about in these crypto markets. Oh, we had bull markets years ago. And there they are in dollar terms. These were your bull markets 2021, 16, 17. And if we get to those levels, now we're talking. And there we break those levels to the downside. Now we're talking, there's your super cycle narrative where the dollar has a long duration period of weakness, maybe like a decade of weakness, lower highs, lower lows. And you have less pronounced bear markets and more pronounced bullishness during said bear markets. And that would be quite interesting. 10-year hovering around 4%. That's good to see. We're coming up on some MAs, that 200 MA on the weekly. I would suspect when the Fed finally does whatever they're going to do with regard to their balance sheet, we start to see a move lower than three, significantly lower than three, down to three and a half, 3 to 3.5. And I don't know what'll happen with shorter term interest rates. That'll probably be more forward looking. But that's what the 2 year says. 2 year says we're down at about 3.5. So Fed funds is definitely off. 10-year needs to come down. Interest rates are too high, which means collateral pricing is too cheap. And if they're able to jawbone collateral pricing up, there goes the global Ave health factor, there goes the global dollar printing system. And outside the US, the dollar gets printed and currency supply significantly increases, which triggers nominal price inflation across various asset classes. Pretty simple to me. Pretty simple. All right. Maybe we'll go through some X posts that I've done to clarify some of my thoughts. I think that's a good exercise we've been doing lately because I post on X and folks are like, what the hell is the captain talking about? But let's go through some commentary first and see if we get there. Killis, good morning. Much pleasure. Teddy, good morning, Cap. Happy Friday, Crispy. Good morning, Joel. Arrow, always pleasure. Good morning. Can you please help me understand why additional free credit line to yield basis of CRBUSD is a good necessary thing? Because it's irrelevant. The curve can extend an unlimited CRBUSD credit line for free to anywhere, and it had little to no impact on on the functionality of curve pricing as long as it's in balance, exactly as Mitch is talking about, with the peg keepers' capacity to expand and effective incentives to finance meaningful liquidity depth. So those are your prerequisites for increasing these free credit lines. Now, if you're able to get into a scenario where you're cyclically increasing the credit line, which triggers price appreciation of YB and or CRV, and you're able to increase the financing of incentives to drive more CRV USD liquidity in the stablecoin LPs, curve stablecoin LPs, that's the feedback loop you want. And that curve, we've never seen the positive flywheel. That's something I think should pique people's interest more than people discuss because they don't discuss it at all. You know, the curve price, let's go here. The flywheel, we haven't seen it work. What does that mean? This isn't the flywheel. This is not delete. This wasn't the flywheel. That was convex. This wasn't the flywheel. This is 2021 global currency supply expansion. Okay? The flywheel is after everything stabilizes, and that's where we're at right now. Everything stabilizes, and the balance of supply and demand is finally there. Look, we're at 52 cents. It's horizontal. We're literally horizontal in price since November of 2020. And that's going on 5 years right now. So when the flywheel which kicks off by a little bit of exuberance, where you get the curve appreciation, you get some yield basis appreciation, therefore you get your liquidity financing boost, therefore you get your credit line expansion, therefore you get your CRV USD supply expansion, and it just everything flywheels back into one another, and it just gets weird. And that's when you go like this. That's when you start to change your your targets, 10, 15, 20, and it's on a different scale. Not that I think those are not, I don't have any price targets, but I mean clearly $10 is quite reasonable. It's just all getting back to all-time high. And when I say things like that, I mean what the hell was last all-time high based on? It was based on bullshit. And now we have this very established robust infrastructure regarding the critical flywheel components between staked out, urine, resupply, Aladdin products. Come on, the potential here is absolutely monumental, especially being it down at 50. That's crazy. So if anyone gets it, Mitch gets it, and that's exactly why the proposal is the way it is. You can increase the credit lines as much as you want, as long as you can manage the peg. And that's something I've talked about for a long time with regard to stablecoins. If the peg is managed, you can mint into a supply sink. I wrote a Medium article a long time ago about a stablecoin idea that I had, and some overtones of what Mitch is talking about and some original thoughts that I had, and therefore I completely agree with what he's doing and why he's doing it. It makes complete sense to me. Peg keepers offer capacity to manage peg, and ironically, you can also manage downside peg for a period of time. Upside peg, it has you have an unlimited capacity to manage upside peg as long as the pairs that primarily contribute to the price of CRVUSD have a peg keeper. You have unlimited upside peg control. Downside peg control, the peg keepers only have a certain amount of capital available to affect pricing of LPs um, outside of where it's deployed. So because it can only affect where it's deployed, and it can only influence indirectly LPs outside of its direct deployment. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, we have this infrastructure right now, and I think we're at the point where it's meaningful. Um, there's always room for more infrastructure, but I think what we have right now is more than enough to see some very interesting positive flywheel effects, especially as some exuberance starts to show in the market. And we know for a fact that exuberance has no bounds. There is no level of degeneracy that this market will not, but that will surprise anyone in this market. And the memory of people in these markets is zero. So everything and anything goes absolutely vertical, especially the stuff that is infrastructure. Financial infrastructure. There's a big tendency to lump dinosaur projects, old projects, 2020 and 2021 are dinosaur projects, into the same bucket as, I don't know, some shit from like 16 and 17 or some meme coins. Oh, it's never going to reach all time high again. There's a big difference between financial infrastructure and something that has just a narrative that it was popular and it had some exuberance. This is a core piece of financial infrastructure that offers each of the five businesses of available in these crypto markets. It's like saying Aave is not going to have an exuberant bull market. That'd be just weird. I mean, this thing is literally a bank. That was like the 36th largest bank in the United States. And great, Curve provides the same functionality as Aave. It's different. Um, It actually provides more functionality than Aave from a crypto fintech standpoint, from a financial technology standpoint. So, of all businesses in these crypto markets, this is by far the most interesting project, in my opinion, because of the financial technology it offers and the contribution it offers to the economics of these crypto emerging markets, as I like to define them. So the point is, Arrow, additional free credit lines are a key component of allowing the flywheel to have legs, to have room to fly and wheel, so to speak. This is how we get CRVUSD organic supply off the ground. So the minting of CRVUSD from a free credit line clearly doesn't impact VECRV revenues. But as the yield basis LPs expand and the volume in them expands, you start to get meta pools. You start to get different pressures on the organic CRV USD LPs on Curve and on other exchanges as well. And that CRV USD can only be acquired from Llama being borrowed, being minted, fresh CRV USD, or being purchased from an existing CRV-USD LP. And as yield basis expands, there'll be some arbitrage as well there. You can't really extract the CRV-USD supply out of Llama currently, given it's only Bitcoin denominated. For instance, to buy CRV-USD from Llama, you need to buy it using Bitcoin. So that's probably not the predominant path right now. Um, Most people or most arbitrage or most aggregator demand is for the Bitcoin supply that's going to yield basis because that's new supplies. Demand for CRVUSD can be acquired prior to yield basis existing. So it's the Bitcoin that's being added to yield basis that's a new supply of something to the market. It gets a little more complicated when there's additional assets in yield basis, when there's Ethereum or what have you, because then you could arbitrage. Then you could buy, you could, you don't have to go necessarily to a Curve LP to buy CRVUSD. You could buy CRVUSD using Ethereum and Ethereum yield basis position. You could buy CRVUSD using Ethereum and then use that CRVUSD to buy the Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying? So that gets more complicated. But suffice it to say, as this credit line expands and as the peg keepers expand capacity, and as the liquidity financing incentives are applied to Curve LPs of CRVUSD, um, then as yield basis appreciates YB and CRV appreciates When exuberance starts, then you get the flywheel kicking in, and you'll get the organic CRV-USD expansion, and that's where the money comes from. And then you'll see that, in my opinion, that's when we see 10x increases of organic CRV-USD supply. I see the end game, and my opinion is CRV-USD ends up as third largest stablecoin behind USDC and USDT. That's just my opinion. Uh, the synergy and flow between yield basis and the curve federation is downright fascinating. Is yield basis a component of the federation? That's an interesting question. See, it's tightly coupled. It's a little bit different than the other protocols. The other protocols are more so consumers of the federation. They're downstream components. But if anything, yield basis is probably at a tier higher, especially with the free CRV-USD facility, the credit facility. Especially with yield basis, it is absolutely a requirement for yield basis to succeed for YB incentives to be applied as liquidity financing to curve LPs. So what has occurred is a symbiotic relationship, which is the same thing for the downstream curve federation protocols, but maybe even to much greater extent with yield basis. For yield basis to succeed, CRV USD must succeed and expand monumentally, and curve as not just a protocol but also a federation must expand bigly, and and the opposite as well. For Curve to expand, the Curve Federation to succeed, yield basis must be successful. So there's this very interesting back and forth synergy that is playing out. And that's exactly what I mean by a flywheel. And that's what I mean by the federation that I've always talked about. And that's what I mean by yield basis being maybe a higher level than the federation, considering how YB is going to be financing a tremendous amount of liquidity. And that was the whole point. And that's something I mentioned on a Telegram chat where you need a new token. You needed a new token. You can't just do it with CRV. You need the supply. You need fresh inflationary supply, disinflationary supply. You need fresh tokenomics so you can throw around the tremendous amount of supply to seriously finance liquidity. It's exactly what there is now. So I think the right decisions have been made, and I think everything is seriously looking uh, to be heading in the right direction. Long-winded answer. Hope that helps, Arrow. The Hook. Good morning, Captain. Happy Friday. Much a pleasure. Fugu, good morning. Rahul. NFCI is minus 55. October 2020 feels. Yeah, let's take a look. Nice call out. Wow. Zoom out to the monthly. Wow. Look at that. How about that? Yeah. You know, this is something you see also in like the move indicator. Starting to see it finally. Maybe the financial conditions is a forward-looking indicator on the move indicator, maybe, and we start to see move head down towards the 50s, and that's where things really get start to kick into high gear. Nice call out. Captain is so bearish that oh, this economy's done. It's not even this. Oh, oh, you're saying the wrong words or the right words to get me to talk and maybe even rant. I'm so bearish on this economy. It's so stupid. This is such a stupid system that the only thing I'm more bearish on than the economy is the politics. It is so stupid. I can't stand hearing these people talk, these talking points. And the only thing worse than the politics is the news media. I can't stand hearing these people talk. It's just such bullshit. The only thing worse than the news media is the people. I can't stand hearing the commentary of the people on the news media. It's just so bad to the point where I'm like, just everyone leave me alone. I don't want to hear it. anyone talk. And I like to listen to myself talk, which is literally why I have a stream where I monologue for an hour and I talk to myself because it's the only voice of reason. I do listen to some podcasts on YouTube. There's some reasonable people. There's a lot of reasonable people. It's just that the vast majority are completely irrational and completely unreasonable and drive me insane. So I'm so embarrassed and I'm bullish. I understand the economic flow of things and where we're heading, and do the best we can. And I will be satisfied with whatever comes because I made the right choices and I applied the right effort and I kept the right mental state and I had reasonable expectations. I will remain humble the entire way. And what will be, and I will be grateful for it. Never shooting for the moon because the moon is a stupid target. Stupid target for shallow, broken people. Don't be shallow, don't be broken, be reasonable. Have reasonable expectations and you will reach those expectations. That is a very important thing in life and it's very I don't know, very cultural, like historic. Be reasonable. Be reasonable to one another. Most people have these horrible opinions and just so opinionated. It's such a broken system. Anyway, I'm so bearish that I'm bullish. Yeah, true statement. I love the intro ramble so much. Hannah, thank you. You've been with me for a bit. I appreciate that very much. I ramble. I'm still rambling. Keep on rambling, rambling. Still going. Captain's rambling. It's the only voice of reason, uh, aside from the couple of voices that I find on YouTube. So I appreciate you very much. John Steps, good morning, Cap. Any thoughts on if these cipher bribes are sustainable? I doubt it. I have no idea. I'm interested. I got to check back because I saw some interesting X posts where some folks were getting some nice returns. That's cool. I got to look into that a little bit more. Um, so I hope don't if you have a positive ROI, like you've swiped your card for $200 and you've gotten $500 in returns, that's cool. That's not a bad thing at all. Uh, I also have to look at the mechanics to see what I can do for how much. I don't really want to excessively spend or intentionally spend capital. But what you're saying is interesting. So Cipher card is pretty interesting, and I like it. And I got whitelisted for Fritz's physical card, but I had a poor experience with funds. I didn't like this. I added 1,000, but I don't understand where my damn balance went. I don't understand that. 1,000 minus 70 minus 80 minus 150. It's two. Yeah, what the fuck? That doesn't add up. I'm not okay with that. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not liking that. And I did ask their support, but anywho, I've been with these guys for a long time, but I'm liking this presentation. This is just a really cool presentation. Um, I definitely look how many options there are nowadays. It's just endless options for debit cards. So why would I lock myself into one particular card? So the two that I've looked into, the two that I've even because I don't want to just have a debit card sitting around. I've also looked into pay link. That's cool. I just don't want random debit cards sitting around. I don't do that. Certainly don't do that with credit cards. Um, but I've been meaning to get outside my comfort zone and maybe get another debit card and stop using Spritz. Oh, dare I say that? I've had brand loyalty for quite some time. Anyhow, interesting points, John. Arrow, I hope we see the positive flywheel soon. Yes, trademark positive flywheel. Looking forward to it as well. Clearly, we will have much to say about it. Channel French banking giant enters crypto with euro-backed stablecoin Euro D. Apparently, there's ZK proofs in private blockchain. Yay, cool. When are they going to have a gauge on Curve? So that's where we're heading. Probably banks start to finance liquidity depth on Curve because that's exactly what we've seen is required for proper LP functionality and proper pricing of stablecoins. You need incentives, or incentives certainly help. Um, Either that, or you're running full tether, full USDC, and I'm sure they have absolutely massive arbitrage operations, manual arbitrage operations. How else could they possibly manage things? Otherwise, look what CRV-USD does for arbitrage with regard to interest rates and peg keeper, whereas USDC and USDT don't have that. So two completely different implementations. So how do you manage peg? It's everything. That's what a stablecoin is. It's the value. The value of the stablecoin must be a dollar. You lose that peg, and things get weird from a narrative standpoint. So let's see how well they do. So I don't see owning yield basis and curve or convex as ecosystem overlap. No, they do very well. Convex, yes, but convex is changing because convex is out of cash, so to speak. They spent, so that's why you needed the new yield basis. In my opinion, that's part of the equation. But convex ultimately is a governance wrapper, and the amount of they're just a dominant owner of so much governance. It's quite extraordinary. I don't know where convex is going to end up. They need to pivot at some point, especially as they reach their supply limit. When their supply is reached and there's no more emissions, they need to pivot. Something needs to change. I don't know what that's going to be, but gonna have to be something. Um, that's gonna be interesting when that happens. I don't know. Yield basis, not overlap. It's two different emission systems. So you have CRV financing and you have yield basis financing. So there's governance over that financing. So that's cool. Two separate governance systems. No overlap. And guess what? All roads lead through Curve and back to Curve. Who mints the CRV-USD? Now, fine, Yield Basis has access to uh, a zero interest rate credit facility from Curve. What we do, uh, as the supply of Yield Basis CRV-USD expands, the demand for CRV-USD to buy from yield basis expands, which means the supply of organic CRV-USD needs to significantly increase. And there's only one place. It's like the United States, it's like, oh, that's a bad example. It's like, where do you go to get CRV-USD? It's better than the dollar because the dollar you could go to any bank around the world and they'll give you dollar liabilities in the euro dollar market. But if you need CRBUSD for whatever reason, there's only one place to get it from. You could borrow it. Maybe that's a euro dollar component, and you know, tying the entire story together. Certainly borrow it. You could buy it FX foreign exchange from the open market, or you can mint it only from Curve, and there'll be an interest rate associated with it. So I definitely don't see an overlap. This is just a synergy, and if anything, convex is changing. Convex is basically cocooning at this point. I would see some sort of metamorphosis at some point, and just dominant governance control. And I don't know what governance is going to be, but between convex governance capacity and cleaver governance capacity, some weird shit's going to happen over the next years. I mean, those things are just governance power, and clearly they're downstream dependent on what they're governing. So if they're governing curve, if they're governing yield basis, so I think Stake Dow did a hat tip for yield basis accumulation. That just makes sense. And I don't know if Convex has a financial capacity to accumulate YB, another wrapper. I don't. I've heard it they don't want to do that, but I think Staked Out wants to do that. So, um, where does governance end up in the value chain? I think is long road ahead. It's potentially extremely valuable, my opinion. People think it's over. It's just the beginning. There never was a bit of having cycle, only a business cycle, global liquidity cycle. Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. Um, total three. This is the financials. This is the financials, meaning you have Bitcoin price, you have Ethereum price. Those are gas tokens. This is your fintech, which kind of is not really the entire picture because it lumps in stuff like what probably Solana, and there's gas tokens in there. Get rid of the fucking gas tokens. We need a ticker that has no gas tokens in it. I don't want no gas tokens. Okay, gas tokens are noise, and there's a lot. XRP is a gas token. Cardano is a gas token. These are gas tokens. Now, where's the fintech, the financial products and services? Aave, Curve, so Convex, so on and so forth, and so many of the basically the only stuff that I own. I don't own barely any Ethereum, barely any Bitcoin for that matter. So you're absolutely right, Peter. Spot on. Mo, question: Are you saying the CRV flywheel can kick in either during the current bull market or in the bear market? Does it matter to get the synergy? Well, you want it. It really only kicks in a um, positive market, bull market. It's the appreciation of the CRV and the YB that will significantly drive financial activity through the entire ecosystem, which is not just Curve and yield basis. We're talking about the entire federation. Because as the price of Curve goes up, if the price of Curve goes up 10%, what happens to the incentives on all the LPs? Up 10%. Price of Curve doubles, you know, the incentives on LPs double. So the capacity to finance liquidity doubles. And now you're getting $2 for every $1 of vote rentals. Then it starts to get weird. It starts to get really weird. So not, not, not really in a bear market. You start to see the weird effects of the positive flywheel in the bull market. Are you looking in the scoop up discount VEYB NFTs? That nah, not likely. I because I have a capacity to accumulate yield basis from vote rentals, and that's coming. Um, so that's cool as long as I don't need the cash. And I think there's reason to accumulate the EYB. I wish I got my Cleaver exposure. That's an absolute disappointment. Dropped the ball on that one. But no, I am not in a position to necessarily expand the portfolio at all. Uh, I'm in a position to appreciate what I've done to get to where I am right now. And that probably leads me to my recent post. It's just what I said on Discord. I see no immediate need to add to existing or anything new that warrants additional exposure. Samsara is coming. I'm a seed round investor in that. I wish I voted better with Cleaver. Looking forward to yield basis ramping up as governance click on in the coming weeks. Not didn't do so well in English there. All the curve proposals that Mitch put up and other folks put up to get the yield basis flywheel cooking. Looking forward to Dromos. Come on, how crazy would it be if Velodrome and Aerodrome merged or whatever the hell they're cooking up? Oh my God! And that's coming. What next month, November 11th or something? That's gonna be so damn cool. We spent so much time this stream talking about Curve. How cool is the Aerodrome narrative and what Coinbase is doing? Oh my God! And dare we say Velodrome and Aerodrome merge? And then you get really the optimistic super chain with super swaps everywhere. And I'm freaking out. It's such a cool narrative. So cool. And we got your hyperliquid Ramses drop, which is coming sooner than later, probably. That's pretty cool. So I'm not in buying mode. As I said on Discord, I'm more interested in some in real life stuff. Been finally killing myself in the gym for the past year. Feel like $1,000,000, healthy, fit, feel clean, lots of energy. kids doing great in school, working on school stuff with my kids. Those are more important things. That the most important thing that people do wrong with finances is just treat it as the main event. It's not an activity. It's the end. The finances are the means. And what's more important is what you do with the finances. And just spending excessive time on the finances isn't going to get you to where you want to be. Mostly it's time. Time is what gets you. Look, I didn't do great on the Cleaver. I could have voted and gotten the $20,000 airdrop. I didn't get it. What am I going to do? Am I going to spend time thinking about it? No. Can I do anything about it now? No. Should I have done something about it in the past? Yes. Am I going to dwell on it now? No. So, am I going to try and buy shit now? Probably not. I don't need to. Why? Because I have a lot of shit. If you spent the last 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, buying stuff, you probably don't need to buy too much more. Now, obviously, if you're new and figuring stuff out, that's a different story. You're not new, Arrow. And so is a lot of other folks in here. You're not new blood. So you don't necessarily have to do much. Mostly the old folks that have been around buying stuff for years get to sit back and watch the exuberance, watch what we know is coming. And it's coming sooner than later. Raul, much a pleasure. Sir Joe, present. Eric, we love the monologues, also liking the polls on Twitter. I get my sarcastic polls. I, I'm just so cynical nowadays. So I do my polls. I'm happy you appreciate them. Pretty sure our Moses Pay has been using Cypher quite some time. Needs KYC though. It all needs KYC. That's another story. KYC. The IRS has no reporting, and either way, it's was it 451. Listen, your accounting and reporting are a whole another conversation, and I got plenty of opinions about stuff like that. I have a, look, I don't taxes and very popular news headlines. This government shutdown. I don't want to pay for this guy's health insurance. So, and literally they're talking about 1.5 trillion dollars to pay for health insurance for people. I'm like, okay, who? I want to know who you're giving health insurance to. You're taking my money to give it to someone. Don't I get a choice in who you're giving? I don't want to pay for his health insurance. I'll pay for this guy's health insurance. That makes sense, but not him. Sorry, dude. I don't have a problem with someone that's big, but I'm not paying for your health insurance. I mean, listen, if you're big and maybe you write down, oh, I'm going to gym 5 days a week, and my blood pressure went from 150 over 95, and I've been going. I'm still 280, 320 pounds, and my blood pressure is now at 140 over 90, and you're making progress. All right, fine. I would probably say, all right, doing good. I'm proud of you. That's progress. Now I'm willing to help out. But I think of things like that from a donation standpoint. Like I donate a fair amount, and I like to donate and to help people, and I'm empathetic in that regard. But it's not blanket because taxes are like blanket donations, and that's stupid. I don't want to just blanket donate to people. I want to donate to people that meet my expectations of reasonableness, my expectations of trying and doing good things. I have no interest in paying for food for people if they're buying processed foods, pancakes and candy and sugars and soda. No, 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 no. I will not pay for that. So that this is anyway. KYC. I'm digressing because of the KYC, and now I'm going on a rant about government and politics and taxation, and I choose to opt out. So now that's something I talk about quite often. You're never going to opt out with a 1040. You have no capacity to opt out. Tax withholdings is the biggest fucking scam there is, where your employer is complicit with the United States government taking your money before you even get it. You have no capacity whatsoever to navigate the laws, the rules, the regulations. But when you have a business, then a business owns assets or generates revenues, You have the full law that you can navigate, and the law has a lot of words, and those words can advocate for you. Those laws can give you power and protection and allow you to do things that most people cannot. Because I am both. I both have a business, and I both also have a 1040, and I'm completely screwed with my 1040. The government could take whatever the hell they want, and I can't do a damn thing about it. Now, if I had a 1099, then I could do different things. I'm still limited, still very limited with the 1099. But if you're talking corporate like an LLC, fine, you could do some more, especially if you have a capacity to do real estate investing, the deductions and the advanced, or was it the rapid deduction, like full depreciation of a property, or in a year or something, or heavy equipment depreciation schedules in a year. Crazy. It's wild what you could do with real estate to offset tax liability. And then it gets even crazier in things like trust, where you could have an entire additional set of laws to navigate. Anyway, I digress. Sorry, dude on the left. I absolutely have no interest in giving you any money for health insurance, my opinion. Um, Samsara, looking forward to it very much. There's your reserves. The reserves are getting low, and that is going to affect liquidity in the system. Anyway, back to the commentary. Maybe we'll wrap it up in a couple minutes. Cypher UI is good. I like the info. I agree. Yes, sir. Where do you see Ethereum? Do you see it appreciating significantly soon? No, soon. I don't think about soon. Now, later is irrelevant. Do I see it as more valuable in the future? Sure. Uh, I will. I own barely any Ethereum. If that means anything, I don't know if it may or may not mean something to folks, but I define it as cash. It's a gas token. You need Ethereum to engage in transactions on the network. Um, with regard to gas tokens, I would treat it as a cash. So my choice of cash is Bitcoin, and I don't even own much Bitcoin. But I wanted the Bitcoin, and I had the Bitcoin, and now I get to engage with Bitcoin on yield basis. So I'm like, all right, that's a win-win. That's cool. If I could get 20% on Bitcoin on yield basis, that's insane. Peter, ISM hasn't even had a meaningful breakout since October 24th. Now we're talking. January 2025 highs of 50.1. Where is the bull market? People say is over. Correct. If you're not over 51, things can get weird because the cycles will cycle, and the cycles are coming. What could convex pivot to? No idea. No idea. Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, their entire user interface presentation is centered around liquidity and the finance, and you're depositing liquidity, and I don't know. I have no idea, because a good part of that liquidity is financed by CVX. And if CVX is out of steam and they have no more CVX to incentivize, I don't know. Complicated. Cap, I blocked my convex to get paid following the rules. Looking forward to my first payment, but hopefully the dollar per VLCVX amounts can improve. Last round being 0.027, cents higher. Um, well, listen, this is your XYZ equation. Before engaging in financial activity, we assess how much does it cost, how much is it paying, and how likely is it to continue paying into the future. XYZ is a critical evaluation, and obviously that comes down to an APR, and you can get an ROI. If you get a 25% APR, you have a 4-year ROI, and that is pretty much unheard of in business. You open a retail outlet, a pizza shop, your ROI is probably greater than 4 years, depending on how much debt you take. Look, you get a mortgage on a property, you're talking about 10, 15, 20-year ROIs. You're talking about 5% APR. So APR is the critical inspection, and hopefully it wasn't with debt. Hopefully you bought your VLCVX business with cash, and that means you don't have debt, and that means you're just getting cash. And that cash will go up, that cash will go down. Cash goes up, cash goes down over time. Not everything succeeds. That is a critical reality of capital management. I've had plenty of things go kablooey. Most recently, Bunny go bye bye. Had many things go bye bye over the years. No one ever said it was easy, but good stuff. Good to hear folks are keeping things simple. That's something that most don't do. Most make things too complicated. Hi, F. Good morning, Cap. How long can the fake economy go on? Just indefinitely. It goes on as long as the general public doesn't think about it, and they're not. Right now, the general public is completely distracted by politics, and they're literally fighting over the government spending money they don't even have. Everyone's fighting over the 1.5 trillion dollars that they want to give for health insurance, and I'm like, I'm not. I don't want to pay for that because you don't even have it. You can't even tax me for it. That's money we won't have for years to come. They're literally borrowing from the future. 1.5 trillion on the 38 trillion debt we have right now. These people are crazy. And then they come on TV and they do their talking points like everything's normal. That's crazy. They're insane. It's disgusting. My cynicism is maximum, maximum cynicism right now. Just this, what how perverted things are, and is it fake? No, it's real. It's just they're borrowing from the future. That's what debt is. But it's just they don't even talk about it because the general public can't fucking understand it. Oh, we want our health insurance. Like you're borrowing 1.5 trillion dollars. You're going to owe interest on it as well as never pay it back for health insurance that lasts a couple years. You fucking twits. It's crazy. Like I don't want to pay for it. And that's really where we got to like this guy. I'm like, I don't want to pay for your health insurance. It's my choice. I should have a choice. I'll pay for help to help people as long as they're trying, as long as they're working hard and killing themselves, because that's what I'm doing. I got to where I am because I busted my ass in my 30s. I killed myself working 18 hours a day, more. My level of physical fitness right now is not because of sitting around, it's because of killing myself in the gym and eating right and sleeping right. And health and well being is because of how I treat my family. I treat them right, do good things. Those are the types of people that I don't need help. I don't need it. But those are the types of people that deserve a helping hand. The arrogant, the insufferable, the opinionated, the the flagrant, the belligerent, the addicts. They don't deserve help. They didn't ask for help. Now it's another story if someone asks for help and they're like, I'm willing to change. I want to do something better. Now, where's the help come from? The help is education. Oh, this is how we can help you. Are you ready to try? And there's a program, and I'm cool with programs. I'm cool with stuff like that. I'm just going to randomly pay for this dude's health insurance if he's just going to continue killing himself, because that's what this presentation is someone killing themselves slowly. And I have no interest in participating in that. Anyway, I digress. I don't mean to call anyone out, and I'm definitely not. I'm definitely empathetic to everyone's difficult realities of life, and I apologize if anyone is offended by what I say. And I always try and present what I'm saying in the most reasonable way possible. So if anyone's hearing me right now and they're taking this personally, it's not personal. It's I work hard for my capital, and I would like to have a say in where it goes. Like if my children were delinquent and not listening, am I going to buy them a present? If they run away from home at 18, am I going to say, please come home, I'll buy you an apartment? What the fuck? No. They need to show a capacity to want to grow and contribute and participate and better themselves. And yes, then we work together collaboratively. I don't like this whole government system where you could be a piece of shit and the government will give you whatever you want. That is just not fair at all. Not fair. You have no right to be an absolute piece of shit. You have a right to try to be a better person. And then people will help you. You're a good person, people will help you. If you're a piece of shit, I can't stand that the government helps absolute piece of shit. It's just not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. Anyway, Convex doesn't need the pivot. They can just enable the boost feature, burn, give back, Convex, boost, boost. I don't know. But if anyone knows, you know. So that sounds like uh sounds good. Sounds good to me. I don't know where it heads from here, but I see it changing, particularly because as their capacity, their CVX supply, unspent CVX supply runs dry, things change. But what you're describing right there is certainly a change, my man. Um, it's not enabled yet. So I look forward to seeing what that UI looks like. I'm sure some adjustments would make for a better presentation if such a significant change is made. Good stuff. When Frax catch a bid, really the question is when do people see Frax USD as a viable alternative to the lot? When cash flow for VE Frax. Listen, of the two stable coins out there, I'm quite fond of Frax and CRV USD. I have no idea when any catch a bid. I'm happy with the things I own. I'm happy with Frax exposure. I'm happy with the curve exposure. I'm happy with the size of the exposure. I think I've made good choices, and I think my portfolio will serve me well into the future. Appreciate you, Peter. You share any reliable non-KYC debit cards? There's no such thing as non-KYC debit card. The only thing that comes close is Pay. It's the only thing that comes close. Payy. That's about it. Looking forward to Dromos as well. That's going to be something. It's going to be something, and I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to find out. Can't fucking wait for Dromos info. That's right. Rebalancing post 1010. I look forward to going back to chill mode. Chill. We got chill, man. We got chill. Too much craziness out there. People got to relax, take care of themselves, meditate, sit in a sauna. Maybe that's why I'm so rational, because I sit in a sauna. I'm so chill. I don't know. It's such a big deal, though, sitting in a sauna. It does so many crazy things for your physiology and well being. Being able to keep claiming assets during the liquidation event and volatility of late is what keeps me calm. Bitcoin to 100, okay, great. Bitcoin to 108, okay, great. Either way, I claim DCA, Bitcoin on dips, pretty simple. And now we got literally yield basis where you just deposit Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes up. If you deposit one Bitcoin in yeah, on the most opportunistic of expectations, you have 1.15 Bitcoin next year, 1.20 Bitcoin next year. That's crazy. That if yield basis does what it was designed to do, that changes the equation. Very exciting. 250 mil in a White House East Wing. Yeah, but that was I heard that was those were funds from like Coinbase and crypto folks. That's cool. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't care for the narrative. They're like, is it coming from tax dollars? Fuck, if that shit is coming from tax dollars, you better get some picnic shit and you sit out on the goddamn lawn and hope the sprinklers don't turn on because I don't want to pay for that shit. Um, if it's private money, great. Okay. I don't know. There's probably some laws and rules around that shit. You know what? My 2 cents is I don't give a fuck. Just don't do anything illegal and make sure it's reasonable. What does it have to do with me? That's White House. That's some politics shit. That's it's above my pay grade. I just better not be paying for it. My 2 cents. Yes, sometimes it's hard finding a vote and claim button. Is it? Shouldn't be. Just keep it simple, and we'll all be okay. Hannah, empathy with boundaries, respect to you. Yeah, boundaries. I've given so many. I still have a hard time not giving when I see folks on the side of the highway, or the off ramp, not on the highway. Um, I can't do the toxic empathy thing where everyone just feels for everyone. This that's not the way the world works. I'll end on a couple of maybe humanitarian notes. Like I think of them a lot of like of Africa and very impoverished nations and stuff like that, and the horrors and the tragedy. But humanity comes back to Darwin, and it comes back to resources, and it comes back to supply and demand, which is a financial concept. There's only a certain amount of resources, and that's it. Period. So how do you ration the resources? That's where financials come in. So it's not simple, and it's certainly not without emotion when not everyone has access to resources. But this isn't about fairness. This isn't about everyone having access. Oh, everyone deserves access. It's a human right to have access to healthcare. No, motherfucker. You know what is a human? What should be a human right? A better human right? A human right is civilization, where things are relatively stable and people are mostly not killing each other. And we have law enforcement where things are calm and people have a capacity to try and fight for the things they need. And they have an opportunity to fight for the things they want in a civilized way. That is reasonable, not take from the majority to give to people that don't have. That's not reasonable. That's not natural. It's what people may think is the way it's supposed to be, but it's not sustainable. And we have history on our side to say that it doesn't work. Certainly doesn't work. But people just make the same mistakes over and over again. And it's a shame. People don't learn from their mistakes. Or if they did, we'd be a better off we'd be better off. I wish for people to learn more and make better decisions and be more reasonable and be more calm and be more rational. So thank you all for listening to me and my closing rant for today. I hope I offended no one today. Friday, October 24th at 12:44 p.m. 296 people made it to the end of the stream and are now that much more rational because of it. Stay calm, cool, and collected over the weekend. Find your way to get to a sauna, hit the gym, get some sun. Definitely exercise and be as strong as you possibly can. Eat well and walk and move and be fit and be healthy and spend time with your family. I will see you guys and gals later next week. Until then, peace.